Yeah, we're doing Gen 2 versus their remakes just in time for the Virtual Console release.
Lucy, that was a month ago.
Anyway, HeartGold and SoulSilver are arguably the most universally loved games in the whole series, but how exactly do they square up to the originals? Well, that's what this series is all about. The videos in this series covering remakes are mostly made to focus on the changes between the generations, but I will be taking a look at what differences there are within HeartGold and SoulSilver as well. As with the last video, I'll try not to rehash all the differences that also apply to the originals, so again, I would recommend going back and watching the video that I did solely covering Generation 2 to better understand this video. So again, we'll begin with what I like to call the inevitable changes. A big portion of this is very similar to the same segment in the last video, so this part is going to be shorter than last time. It's basically how the games were bound to be different from the originals because they were developed for the DS instead of the Game Boy Color. So obviously the graphics, sounds, and the way that the game runs are going to be far more advanced. If you want to listen to this section in more detail, then go back to the Fire Red and Leaf Green video. I know it seems lazy, but in the long term you will thank me because it saves a good 3 or 4 minutes of babbling. We covered this in more depth in the last video, but by the time of Generation 4, individual values had replaced the determined values of Gens 1 and 2 when it came to determining stats and that. Shinies are no longer determined by the Pokemon's DVs, but by the personality value, which also controls the Pokemon's ability and nature, which are new features introduced in Gen 3. Pokemon characteristics have also been carried over from Sinnoh. They don't really do anything other than just tie into what your Pokemon's highest stat is. I didn't actually know that until a few years ago, and I just assumed that it was some random bit of text meant to give your Pokemon more personality or something. Like, is the point of characteristics ever even mentioned in game? I don't think it is. Generation 2 had 251 moves. That's one wild coincidence. But in Gen 4 the total has been brought up to 467, meaning that HeartGold and SoulSilver have a huge 216 more moves to play around with. The TM and HM list is the same as in Sinnoh, save Defog being replaced by Whirlpool. Pokemon lens sets differ from the originals because they've been updated to what they were in the Sinnoh games. A whole bunch of new items introduced in Gens 3 and 4 are also present in the game. You've got the feeling ribbons coming back from Sinnoh, given out by the Day of the Week siblings along with their regular items from Gen 2, with a couple tweaks of course. Seals also return, and you can get 3 random ones per day from a girl in Olivine City. In the original video for Gen 2, I talked about how the sprites differed between Gold and Silver. However, this is a feature that they later abandoned with paired releases, and the sprites are the same between the two remakes. Carrying on with the series standard, there's now the optional female character, Lyra. Crystal was actually the first game to introduce this feature with Chris, but both of the playable characters were significantly redesigned. Ethan still resembles the Gold from the originals, but Chris and Lyra seem to be two completely different characters. The whole game has been adapted to the DS's double screen display too. For example, when walking around, the overworld is on the top screen and the bottom screen has the main menu. Or in battle, the battlefield is on the top screen and the options are on the bottom. And finally, arguably one of the most significant changes that came with being a game that takes place after Diamond and Pearl would be the legendary physical special move split. You've probably heard about this in lots of videos before, so I'll make it quick. There are 2 types of damaging moves, physical and special. The amount of damage these moves do is tied to the Pokemon's physical and special attack stats respectively. In Gen 3 and below, certain types and all their moves either fell into one of the 2 categories. So for example, a move like Bite, a dark type move was classed as special because the dark type was a special attacking type, which is kinda stupid because Bite is almost certainly a physical move. So with the physical special split, moves are now grouped into these categories by whether or not they make contact, not by their type. This was pretty game changing and it helped a lot of Pokemon out while really hurting some others, but it changed the competitive scene forever. And hey, just like that, we're on to the actual juicy version differences. I'm not gonna go through everything version exclusive that parallels the original game, so if you want to hear it again, go to the first video on Gen 2. The intros have been completely revamped and don't resemble the original intros at all. The start screen does resemble the original somewhat, but that's about it. The original intro for Gold and Silver is probably my favorite of the whole series, but the remakes had so many staggering visuals that really set the bar high for later games. Interesting differences to note would be that the beginning visual differs between the 2 versions, featuring Lugia against the moon and Ho-Oh against the sun. Was Sun and Moon really foreshadowed that long ago? The segment featuring Suicune is also different too. In SoulSilver, the image moves down toward the sea to represent the themes of SoulSilver, and in HeartGold it moves upward toward the sky, representing HeartGold's themes. HeartGold and SoulSilver made far fewer tweaks to the version-exclusive Pokemon than Fire Red and Leaf Green did before them. Of Kanto and Johto Pokemon, the only change made was having the Omanite line only in HeartGold, and the Kabuto line only in SoulSilver. You find the fossils through smashing random rocks at the ruins of Alph. The fossils weren't even in the original, so it's better than nothing, right? In the post-game, there are Pokemon available from Gens 3 and 4, with some of them being split up between games. HeartGold gets the Baltoy and Anorith lines, Sableye, Kyogre, Mantag, and Gliscor. SoulSilver gets the Gulpin and the Leap lines, as well as Mawile and Groudon. So HeartGold actually gets 2 more than SoulSilver, but only because they're additions to lines that were already version exclusive to begin with. The only change made to the Johto Pokedex was the addition of 5 Pokemon evolutions. The reason they did this might be confusing considering what they did with the evolutions in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but it was another case of, well, what else could they have done? The 5 Pokemon evolutions that they added were ones that evolved from Pokemon already in the Johto Dex, through level up plus certain moves. So like, the only other alternatives would have been prevent those Pokemon from learning those moves until the post-game? Hey, that's too awkward and we can't be bothered. Taking the Pokemon that they evolved from out of the main story? No, my baby. It's weird seeing Gen 4 Pokemon in the regional decks, but just about anything's better than the stupid solution they came up with in Fire and Leaf Green, so I'll take it. The Pokedex's look is completely different with more options available, and new bits of information like the Pokemon's type are shown. There's also the National Dex mode obtained post Elite 4, which allows you to register entries for all the Generation 3 and 4 Pokemon. Fortunately, Game Freak learned from Generation 3, and didn't enforce a ridiculous trade restriction, completely preventing you from playing through the game with other region Pokemon without cheating. So stupid. With the nature of remakes, Pokemon distributions across Kanto and Johto largely stay the same, with some Pokemon changing here and there, and other areas now offering Generation 3 and 4 Pokemon later on in the game. Mewtwo and the legendary birds are now available in their original locations from Gen 1 and 3, with Moltres and Mount Silver instead. You also get a choice of one of the Kanto starters after beating Red. In the post-game, you get a Hoenn starter from Steven 2, the Weather Trio are available, Latias and Latios now roam HeartGold and SoulSilver respectively. That's a lot, and we're not even counting the events. Main story differences is a tricky subject because while these games are seen as remakes of Gold and Silver, in truth they're a mashed remake of all 3 games. Gold, Silver, and Crystal aren't all that different in terms of story, with there being the new character Yuzine and more emphasis put on Suicune. This carries over to HeartGold and SoulSilver, and it's basically the same as it was in Crystal in that regard. But instead of being caught at Tin Tower, Suicune is battled at Route 25. The other 2 legendary beasts roam Johto as before. Your male or female counterpart now actually plays a role in the story. They don't battle you, they're just there. They make you leaf crowns though. Your purpose from this day forth is to weave these weird gold things I found into pretty crowns. The Kimono Girls now play a much larger role than they did before, with you encountering them all throughout the story and at the summoning of Lugia or Ho-Oh. They now all use the same sprite, whereas in Gen 2 there were 3 variants. You also battle them later on in the game, and replacing the battle earlier on is one against the Team Rocket Grunt in the Dance Theater. The legendary summoning thingy is a much bigger deal in these games because it's actually required to progress in the game and to be able to challenge the Elite Four, whereas before you could just do it whenever you wanted. The Team Rocket admins actually have names and unique designs. My favorite is Proton. The clear and tidal bells are now required for you to summon your version mascot as well as the respective feather. I don't really know how to order these, but HeartGold and SoulSilver had a massive amount of new features. Fire Red and Leaf Green had the Serebii Isles to explore, but being able to work with the massive post-game content that Gold and Silver already had, improving it, and then putting in arguably some of the best loved features in Pokemon history really cemented these games as fan favorites. So I guess let's go right from the main menu with the Pokewalker. This is a little device of pure beauty. When I first got SoulSilver, I took it just about everywhere with me. For some reason, the Pokemon that I'd always have in it was this random Elekid. I was never even that big on Elekid. It's okay. But all the fun memories of the Pokewalker have made me like it a lot more. And even if you're not into Pokemon, this university study shows that it's actually one hecking accurate pedometer. Makes you think. And we get to the big cheese of the new features. following Pokemon. I genuinely believe that this feature, for the most part, single-handedly pushed HeartGold and SoulSilver up to the pedestal that they share today. That's not to say that without this feature they're not good games, because they are, but when you ask someone why their favorite game is HeartGold and SoulSilver, chances are they'll say something like, oh, because Pokemon follow you, almost every time. And well, it was beautifully pulled off. I especially like how Pokemon actually retain their shininess when they follow you, since it's always bugged me that they appear normal in their menu sprites. So now we'll look at the additions made to the regions Kanto and Johto. So, Pokathlon. This place is beautiful. Main series Pokemon has never really stood out for its minigames, but they blew away all expectations with this. In the Pokathlon, you compete in athletic events with your Pokemon. My favorite events would probably be the relay run and lamp jump. Soar to the heavens, my child. I hate pendant capture though. By competing in more courses, you can earn points to exchange for items. As you progress, you also gain access to more rooms in the dome, and cool trophies you get to display. I feel like I've achieved something for the first time in my life. The Battle Frontier from Platinum is now located where Crystal's Battle Tower was and is essentially unchanged. However, once you get to Cyanwood City, you'll find that there's a cave leading to an entirely new area. The new Route 47 has Cliff Cave, which leads onto the Embedded Tower, which is where you can catch the Weather Trio in the post-game. It also has these two special trainers. Route 48 leads onto the new Johto Safari Zone. It really sucks that they didn't bring back the Safari Zone after HeartGold and SoulSilver, but they rounded off the tradition with arguably the best one yet. This place has so many areas that you can customize, and the Pokemon that you can potentially find here are ridiculous. Wild Beldum, Metang, Riolu, Lapras, Breloom, and Shelgon, and that's just to name a few. Pal Park returns from Sinnoh and takes the place of the unused Safari Zone in Fuchsia City. The Global Terminal from Platinum is also in these games, and is tacked on to the far side of Goldenrod. In the Goldenrod Tunnel, you can dress up your Pokemon using decorations from Sinnoh's contests, which you get randomly from a hiker for 100 Pokedollars. Another returning location from Sinnoh would be the Wi-Fi Plaza. This was a place where you could play mini-games, ride floats, and interact with other players. And I'm sad because when they shut down the Wi-Fi services for the DS a few years ago, it meant that we had to say goodbye to this place forever. With the new additions covered, were there any other changes made to other locations? Well, yeah. New Barktown is essentially the same. This house is now home to your rival, or your friend? Seriously, what even are they? Professor Elm's lab now has an upper section. Well, I guess that's good. At least he doesn't have to sleep on the cold floor of his lab anymore. Windmills! Cherry Grove has the secret section where you can find a super secret Pokemon after getting rock climb. Violet City now has one big pond instead of two. On Route 32, and also in Goldenrod City for that matter, you can see the magnet train line. HeartGold and SoulSilver take after Crystal and have the expanded ruins of Alph. National Park has a secret area like Cherry Grove. Cyanwood City has this little thing returned from Crystal because it's where Suicune stops during a cutscene. The Lake of Rage also has two different looks. On Wednesday it looks like it did in Gold and Silver, but every other day of the week it rains and floods the area. And so, different paths, trainers, and items are accessible depending on when you go. Dragon's Den is the same as it is in Crystal. Mount Silver has been vastly expanded from the originals, which makes sense considering it's now home to Moltres. The lower section is the one that you have to navigate to get to Moltres, whereas the new sections of the mountain have to be passed to get to Red. Mount Mortar now has a new entrance, which is where you get the Dubious Disc. The first Seafoam Island can actually be entered now as Articuno is in the game, but the layout is vastly different to how it was in Gens 1 and 3. Cerulean Cave has also opened up with a new layout for you to go and catch Mewtwo. Rock Tunnel's layout has changed, and Diglett's Cave now has an upper section accessible by rock climb. In the originals, Viridian Forest was pretty much non-existent and had become a tree maze that was part of Route 2, but in the remakes it was a separate and much more developed area once more. With the addition of the Pokemon League reception gate, Route 23 was pretty much entirely replaced, with the exception of this tiny strip between the Pokemon League and Victory Road. While Gold and Silver still classified this as a route, in the remakes it was officially wiped off the map. Route 25 has this new elevated platform because that's where Suicune is battled now. The Pewter Museum and the bike shop were closed off in the originals but now are accessible. I think that that's it for the new additions beyond the usual, this looks prettier. This section is all of the changes that don't really fit anywhere else, so I'm going to pretend that they have a category of their own. First, we got the Polka Gear, which had huge changes. Even just aesthetically, the interface for all sections has been completely redesigned, and you can even give it new looks with various themes. Like in the originals, you can add people's numbers. Gold and Silver had a limit to how many numbers you could store, but in the remakes it's unlimited, and for this reason you can't delete numbers either. Apparently in the originals you couldn't decline a call, which sounds awful, because I don't want to be trapped into listening to Joey here go on about his Rattata for an eternity. A few of the trainers registered differed between the versions, but they're mostly unchanged. Rematch calls now only happen after the radio tower attack, and if you're like me, you can't be bothered waiting, you can just call them yourself and get a rematch that way. The radio has a ton of new features. Lots of changes were made to the radio broadcasts. Lots of programs do return, but the broadcast times have been switched around to make space for new stations. Swarms return in these games and they're announced through the radio. All but Tauros return from the originals, because it's now on Route 48 instead. And a whole new list of Pokemon now swarm Kanto and Johto. Possibly my favourite new thing about the updated Poke Gear would be the Hoenn and Sinnoh sound, which you can play to attract select Pokemon from Hoenn and Sinnoh. Sinnoh sound also attracts Meditite for whatever reason. You believe in yourself, Meditite. If you want to be a Gen 4 Pokemon, then golly gosh, you can be a Gen 4 Pokemon. The Places and People show is renamed to Town Channel, and now talks about the top 3 parts of random places in Kanto and Johto. Oh my gosh, guys, I've been doing it wrong for like the past 2 years. Forget top 10s, top 3s is where it's at. Trainer Profiles is a new show where they describe different training classes. Buena's password prizes are slightly different and the whole channel has been mixed into the new Variety channel, along with 2 new shows, Pokemon Search Party and Serial Radio Drama, which, as they suggest, are Pokemon-themed documentaries and dramas. The Mysterious Transmission now increases the chance for you to encounter Uncall Unknown in the Ruins of Alph. The Lucky Number and Pokedex shows are exclusive to Gen 2. And finally, The Past Archive is a new show that plays old tunes from Generation 2 after you get the GB Sounds key item. Which brings us on to said key item. This item is, I love it. When you use this item, it transforms all the music that you hear into Generation 2 styled tunes. Here's a clip from my SoulSilver demonstrating the effect. The best part is that it works for locations that weren't even in the originals. So you get to imagine what places like the Global Terminal, Pokathlon Dome and such would sound like in Gen 2. It's so beautiful. A nice little feature they added would be Cameron the Photographer. This is a new character that shows up throughout the story and offers to take pictures of you and your Pokemon. You get to save these pictures in your PC, and it's cool because if you do it throughout your journey, then you can look back on it. They grow up so fast. The area pictures returned from Fire Red and Leaf Green, but this time changed depending on the time of day. As with the nature of remakes, NPC placements, names and teams are mostly unchanged, but there is the odd one here and there that's different or even new ones added in. On a similar note, gym leaders and other significant characters have similar teams but have some Pokemon, as well as moves and levels tweaked in some places. The layouts of some of the gyms do stay the same, whereas others drastically change. Gym leaders themselves now play a much bigger role outside of their gyms than they previously did. You can now register their phone numbers by being in the right places at the right times. If you call them at exactly the right time, then you can challenge them to a rematch. Saffron City's fighting dojo is given more of a purpose by serving as Kanto and Johto's answer to the battleground. Once the gym leader accepts your challenge, they'll just stay there until you battle them. That is their entire life's purpose from that day forth. It's quite sad, actually. They have teams at much higher levels than in the main story, with new Pokemon from Generations 3 and 4 as well. HeartGold and SoulSilver take after the Sinnoh games with their beautifully crafted events. Actually, wait, scratch that. The events in this game are actually several times better, and I love Sinnoh. First up, we've got the Enigma Stone. Latias and Latios are version-exclusive roamers, but with the Enigma Stone, you get to encounter the other one in Pewter City. This is the only event that I actually got on my game, and believe it or not, I left Latias waiting in my SoulSilver for nearly 5 years, because I wanted to be special and shiny hunt it. And 5 years later, I did just that. It was for my 2,000 subscriber of a special, actually. How time flies, right? It only took me like 25,000 SRs. Then there's Arceus and Sinjoh Ruins. By taking an event Arceus to the Ruins of Alph, you get to access the mysterious Sinjoh Ruins. This crazy cutscene plays with real-world images shown for the first and only time in the whole series. And then... boom! It's a giant egg. What? It's hatching! Into one of the creation trio. Yeah, it's kinda weird. Then there's the Pikachu-colored Pichu event. It's a shiny Pichu, and if you take it to the Ilex Forest Shrine, then it will trigger an event that lets you obtain the Spiky Ear Pichu, a special form that's only in this game. You can't transfer it because of side effects of it having traveled through time. More like Game Freak couldn't be bothered to update it graphically through later games, am I right? I think I'm a lot more cynical these days. And finally, there's the Celebi event that's triggered if you take an event Celebi to the same shrine. This transports you back in time to when Team Rocket was defeated at the hands of Red. It gave fans the first solid proof that Silver was indeed Giovanni's own son. Then you're rocketed back in time to the Goldenrod takeover, to battle Giovanni and prevent him from returning to lead Team Rocket again. Event-wise, it's definitely a fan favorite and it's easy to see why. Of course, there are more events like the Shiny Beasts, but these are all the ones that go beyond just getting an amazing Pokemon and carrying on with your day. Speaking of which, the function of Mystery Gift has changed drastically from the originals, and now you pretty much only get event Pokemon from it. On a similar note to these events, if you have a Shaman and bring it into the Goldenrod Flower Shop, a small event will play out, and you'll receive the Grassadilla to get Shaman Sky Form. Here's a tricky one, Game Corner. If I happen to be Japanese, then we wouldn't be here because Japanese games aren't different in this regard, but HeartGold and SoulSilver are the last games in this series with a Game Corner. Japan got theirs just fine. But outside Japan, the arcade machines we all knew and loved were replaced with Voltorb Flip. I actually hate this game. It's all because of regulations set in place by Peggy, because apparently harmless little arcade games in a Pokemon game promotes gambling, oh no! Around the Johto region you've got a lot of berry trees, with the trees on routes 37 and 42 providing an apricorn of each colour. However, in the remakes the berry trees were all made to grow apricorns instead, making them more readily available. As for berries, the new Berry Pot's key item was introduced as a solution. Apricorns now occupy the space of the apricorn bag instead of being individual items. They also have a new use. You can blend them and give the drink to your Pokemon to improve its performance in the Pokathlon. The bag was also redesigned and has a ton of pockets to sort out your items. The bag now has unlimited space, which is a beautiful feature I am very grateful for. Something I am not grateful for is the fact that HeartGold and SoulSilver are the final games in the series to have a Pokeball pocket in the bag. In Generation 5, they're just grouped in with the regular items and it annoys me to no end. Please tell me it isn't just me. The party interface and summary have been drastically redesigned from the originals, having more sheets of info like ribbons, and a new Pokathlon stats page. The running shoes return as a series standard, but in these games you can have them permanently on. I love this! The trades are mostly the same as they were in Gold and Silver, with a couple from Crystal thrown in. The Aerodactyl trade is gone because you can actually restore Aerodactyl yourself now, and the Rapidash trade is just gone. Wait a minute, why is that Dodrio named Doris? There is only one true Doris. There are also some new trades that you can make with some of the gym leaders too. Move tutors are now located in the Frontier Access and teach a wide variety of moves. Some items you can find in these games are in the same locations as in Gen 2, whereas others are completely new. Some music is altered, for example the mascots now have their own themes, which they didn't in Gen 2. I'll play a snippet from them both because they're really cool. You're welcome. The legendary beasts retain their themes, but they have slight variations with the instrumentals depending on which one you encounter. Cinnabar Island has its own theme now, which is a slower, bittersweet version of its theme from the Generation 1 and 3 games. And now, the really random quickfire stuff. You can't decorate your room anymore. Stationary Pokemon regenerate if you can't catch them after you beat the Elite Four. You can fly to the Pokemon League now. Headbutt is now taught by a move tutor instead of by TM. Upon your first encounter, your rival is now known as Passerby Boy instead of question mark. Breeding mechanics have changed to pass down 3 guaranteed IVs if the Pokemon holds a certain item. Oh, I guess Mizuta method is now a thing too. Cal from the Trainer House is now an Ace Trainer. Tin Tower is now called Bell Tower. Kanto and Johto have been altered to make use of the Rock Smash and Rock Climb HMs. TMs. Gym leaders give out TMs. Apparently they didn't before. You can see your Kanto badges now, and the trainer card has two sides like in previous games, with earnable stars and fancy colors. Glitter Lighthouse has been revamped with fancy camera angles on the new balconies. SS Aqua's trainers can't be rebattled anymore. Book catching contest has more Pokemon and prizes. Mount Moon is way smaller now. The credits in this game are gorgeous. You get to cosplay as Team Rocket in the main story, and all the NPCs treat you like a criminal. You can track the roamers on the Polka Gear map. You can register 2 items now. Rotom Room. Diplomas for the Johto and National decks. I don't have the National one because I'm lazy. And last of all, the borders look so good in this game. But that's it for HeartGold and SoulSilver version differences. I know for a lot of you watching, these are probably your favorite games, so I hope I did them justice. I really underestimated how many changes they make in a remake. This was a really big video, even for my standards, and I worked really hard on it. Like, my raw audio for this was 3 hours long, and that's not even counting the countless hours that it takes me to edit it down. I hate audio so much. Next in this series will probably be Ultra Sun and Moon because they're coming out ultra soon. It's probably gonna be a really big video, so it's a bit daunting. Wish me luck, I'm gonna need it. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in the artwork featured in this slidey thing. Okay, thanks for watching, bye!